The first game we're going to talk about, though, is The Thing.
Designed by Jovan Wetering. Artist is Justin Erickson and Mark Simpson, and it's published by, they got Mondo Games and Project Raygun. I'm not totally sure. I thought Project Raygun was on the box, but
I think this was USAopoly, right?
Well, they were showing it off.
The op.
Yeah, the op. They were showing it off, but it wasn't published by them. I think they were helping out one of these companies.
Oh, that's fair. Like they're just sharing a booth or something?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
cool.
it was kind of a deal like that. Okay, so The Thing infection at Outpost 31. So we'll start with the setup. It's fairly basic. You get to pick a person. There's player powers. Then we're going to set up a blood test deck that has pretty much a card for every player plus one. There is one infection card in there. We're going to deal them up, pass them out. Could be one of us infected, but this is called an imitation. You're a bad guy. You're trying to sabotage everybody. Now on the board, we have 3 sectors. Each sector has 6 rooms in it. Then there's also a rec room where everybody gets to hang out at and explore from there. Then you get supply cards. These are different things that essentially they're what, knives, they're axes, they're just dice. They give you plus dice, you know, to rolls that we later will use to try and fight monsters. So starting off, there is a deck of mission cards, and also every player is like a certain faction. It's a military, scientist, and mechanic, I think. And so each mission requires, it comes out, it says like it takes 5 people to do this, but 2 of them have to be mechanics. You arbitrarily try and come up with this team. You go to the room where there is chits all placed on all these rooms, and try and meet the challenge. Whenever you go there, it will give you a challenge of like hand in a bunch of cards, or have I don't know, like 2 + 2 dice cards in the deck or in the hand that you get. So what happens is everybody contributes cards. There's a kind of a looking at phase. We won't go too deep into it, but then you reveal the card, see if you pass the challenge. If you pass the challenge, great. You flip over that card or flip over the chit on that room. You might get something cool like a rope or something like that, but you could get the thing. The battle ensues. We'll get back to that in a second. But beyond that, then rewards are passed out and this and that. If you do have to fight the thing, essentially it's kind of a Yahtzee style dice rolling thing, but that's also where these cards with the dice modifiers, the +1, +2 dice, can help in that instance. You can only get up to 6 dice though. You do this Yahtzee style rolling. Hopefully you win. Eventually you will meet the requirements to move beyond that room, or that sector, sorry. And when you do this, that opens up like sector 2. Now there's another blood test phase where we're going to take our blood test pile. There is, in the setup we had with 6 players, and it's different beyond that. Or we had 7 players.
We had 7.
We had 7. We had a stack of 5 regular like human cards and 2 imitation cards. These are handed out to everybody. If there was an imitation and he gets an imitation card, nothing happens. But essentially, if you're a human and you get an imitation card, you just join the bad guys. It's pretty much the same thing through Sector 2 and Sector 3. There are some things where the rooms can get smoke in them. You might have to deal with that by getting a fire extinguisher. You just discard this to prevent that. But eventually, if you don't take care of it, that can turn into a fire, which could destroy a room. And that's kind of the biggest thing you have to worry about, besides the imitations screwing over everything you're trying to do. So, and at the end, once you get through all 3 sectors, if you can, there is a helicopter ride out where the captain at that moment, I guess I didn't talk about that. There is a captain who delegates all this, but the captain at that time will pick a certain amount based on player count to go into the helicopter. You might have some blood tests left. There's also 2 tracks at the top based on if rooms are getting destroyed or if you're losing battles to the thing. And that's kind of like a Doom tracker in essence. If it gets too far down, then you will lose the game that way too. But there's one last check to go on the helicopter. If an imitation is on there, you lose. If everybody's human, great, you win. So
it acts like it's a distilled version of Battlestar Galactica.
Yes,
but with a little bit more gameplay, like the Resistance.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the game.
Yeah,
with a ton of useless miniatures.
Yes.
Agreed.
But they're nice. They're nice miniatures.
Yeah, they all look great. So I don't know who you want to start with this, but
Matt, you can start. I mean, you're probably the most excited about this one.
yeah, actually I was. I believe I either bought this blindly or my wife bought me this for my birthday. I cannot remember. But I was pumped either way to get it. I am a super big fan of the film. I think George is also.
Very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I like IP. I give them shots. Usually I'm disappointed. This one I was fairly pleased with. The miniatures, I'm not saying they're super detailed, but it is enough detail that they're distinguishable. I can pick up any miniature and tell who it is.
It does seem like the miniatures were mostly there for nostalgia
Yes.
than it was actual gameplay.
Right. And that is kind of a weird complaint to have, that there's all these miniatures,
But you don't do anything with
you
them,
don't
really.
you don't really need them for anything. You just
Yeah.
need one.
If you're a fan, though, bam, there you go.
Right, because essentially everybody goes as a group. There's no splitting up beyond that, other than if you're putting out fires, you can't have an extra person go off somewhere else. But you don't even need a miniature for that.
Yeah, you don't even need the miniature for that, right?
Yeah, you don't need the miniature for that either.
It would almost be cool if at some point there are some like dual group cards where you have to have like 2 groups go out,
Right.
but make them like small groups, like 2 and 3 players and 2 and 3 players.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
and then like so it's like 2 groups, and then it's like, who do we pick? You know,
Right.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, if you are a fan of the movie, this will just be that much better for you. And I think even if you don't know the movie, it's still a pretty good game. And it's got I didn't expect it to be so social driven.
Yeah.
It was a lot of social going on. Beyond that, the gameplay is fairly simple. But yeah, man, I had a blast with this. So
Yeah, I would say I didn't really. I don't actually remember if I seen the movie or not, but you definitely don't have to see the movie to play this game. You'll still get the theme of
Eric
it.
was thinking it's the swamp thing. Yeah, I think that, it's weird because we started playing it and I literally was like, this is the game. The first phase of the game was very lackluster.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got better and better, which is weird because it's like literally
Actually,
the same thing over and over. But
right.
At the beginning, we were thinking it was like, oh man, it's gonna be so easy to win.
That's always such a big mistake.
Right.
yeah.
So
The interesting thing that I did read online is the fact that if you have, can there be 2 infected at the beginning of the game, or is there just 1?
No, it can only be 1.
Gotcha. If that one player, let's just say, like there's always perfect conditions for everything, but you can literally end the game in 2 missions.
can you?
Yeah, because
Like-
you only need the rope in the first mission, and if
Gotcha.
if the person who's the infected or whatever it's called, the imitation, has 2 sabotage cards, and say on the first round they're not the leader, and they get pulled in, and they do a good job of concealing themselves and sabotaging it, and then it's their turn, winning.
Huh.
Like, because do you have to pick yourself to go? I think we always did.
Yes, it is a role. If you're the captain, you have to go. Yes.
That makes sense. Yeah, because otherwise everyone can argue you're bad. If you're bad, you would not take yourself or something.
And
Right.
unlike
That would be kinda-
Resistance,
that
you
wouldn't be
can't-
fun.
You can't, vote down who the captain chooses to go to this party or to this mission.
Well, in this, you're saying that unlike Resistance,
Like Resistance, everybody can downvote. It was like, oh, okay, if you pick this guy, we know you're bad, and we're gonna downvote it,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's gonna go to a new leader.
well, in this one you can use the rope though. So I mean, there's still something in there where you can bypass somebody from being the captain.
Mm-hmm.
It is a one-time effect, though.
True, but there's like 2 rope in each phase.
Yes, I think there was
So there's like 6 times
6
you
chances
can do it.
you
Yeah,
could do it.
I think there's enough chances to be okay.
You also don't always get both ropes.
I mean,
before
that's
going
fair.
to the
That's
next
fair.
phase.
Yeah.
Right, and I think the difficulty ramps up very quickly in the game, so we may have played poorly in that we didn't go back to earlier areas to try to get more rope.
So
And
like
we just
gear up.
we just
Yeah.
pressed ahead and really got in over our heads very quickly.
Right.
Well,
Well, I remember the first sector was a 50-50 shot on
Right.
getting a rope or the thing. So I understand us not doing that one. Maybe in the second sector we could have hung out there a little bit longer.
Yeah. It sounds like that instance that you're talking about, Tim, is a real corner case where
That's why I said perfect conditions.
yeah.
Yeah.
But in general, I think that the human players have a very hard time.
Yeah.
I kind of agree as well. And although I'll say as an infected imitation, they do have it harder on this game than a lot of the other games. And if you do mess up, and you're found out. That's one bad thing about this game. It kind of shares it with some other games. If you're kind of found out, you're kind of just twiddling your thumbs throughout the rest of the game.
Pretty much.
You don't have to
Yeah.
do anything.
You do want to kind of lay low for a while.
But the restrictions, I guess, sometimes forces you to where you have to, because based on the if you're a mechanic or whatever, because I know
have to go.
yeah, sometimes you have to take a person that is that classification.
Right.
So
You could be dead certain that they're bad, and you still have
you
to
still
take
have
them.
to take them
Yeah,
sometimes.
because there are sometimes that it'll say take both, military guys or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which is a good. I like that. I like
Yeah.
that mechanism.
Yeah.
I thought that the theme really came through in the game.
Oh, yeah.
It's so faithful to the movies. And I went back and watched the prequel thing
Yes. Oh,
as
did ya?
well. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it so
What'd
much.
you think of that ending, dude?
The ending was perfect. The ending was brilliant.
Because it was the beginning of
It
the
was
first one.
absolute beginning of the
Spoiler alert. But
Yeah. It's been out 10 years.
Yeah.
But that works out if it's a prequel and it leads directly into the next movie.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, because I was it's such a close parallel. You think it is just a remake, but then at that end, man,
Yeah.
you get smacked in the face. It's like it's that other Outpost. Oh no!
so you should watch the first movie, the movie that came out first,
Yes,
I mean,
and then the newest film.
yes.
They're both called The Thing, though.
They're
right?
both called the thing. That's what it was, a trick. They made you think it was a remake, and it was not.
That's awesome.
But it was so well done. It just
Yeah.
had the same amount of tension and faithfulness to the material. It was great.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I don't normally do this, but when I was looking at the comments, because I like to see people's comments to see if they bring up anything that I'm like, oh yeah, I was kind of annoyed by that, but I forgot about it, or yeah, that's a good point. That's really awesome.
Okay.
I don't want to call this person out, but this comment was anyway. It
Well,
says
there's a million comments you could.
there's
Here's
really
her
comments, but this kind of applies to a lot of games. It says horrible rules. Okay, sure, whatever. But you really have to know the rules before playing, because there are no cheat sheets and you can do things that aren't stated anywhere except in the fine print. Vague rules. It feels like that isn't a finished product.
It's weird because going back to the rule book, they highlight certain lines that are imperative for you to know.
And remember,
Yeah.
It's like some of it's kind of like if you gloss over this and miss it, it's not a big deal, but they straight highlight what you have to know
That's what I was saying.
for the rules.
And there is a cheat sheet. There's a little card that you hand out. I
Yeah,
don't know who
that is true.
who was. This is a prime example of why, if you have a bad playthrough of a game and somebody else taught it to you,
or even a bad teacher.
yeah, or a bad teacher, you should read the game and then replay it as the teacher or with somebody else teaching the game.
There's probably a whole lot of oh by the ways.
Right.
And
Oh,
they
by the
re-
way, yeah. Or like, what can you do that's in the fine print that you don't know of? You go on a mission or you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, testament to Matt's teaching us the game. He did a really good job, and we didn't stumble a bit.
And the next part is just blatantly wrong, and this is the reason why I know this person didn't read the rulebook. Most missions require 4 or 5 players, and in a 5-player game with 2 things, that's guaranteed
You
failure.
take out the player count cards.
Yes. So
They were playing with the wrong sets.
That would make it tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what they're saying is if it requires 5 and you have 5 players, no, it's always going to require 4 or 5. There's never a card that says requires 5 in a 5-player game. Otherwise, it's a 6, 7, or 8-player card that gets removed.
Yes.
Right.
So if it's a 4 or 5 player and you have to take 4 of the 5, and I guess there is 2 things, it's not guaranteed to fail because you're also relying on the fact that that person has a sabotage card.
Correct.
Which in plenty of cases was the thing where we kind of knew who 2 of the things were, or the 2 things at that time. We basically knew who they were. Or at least one of them we were pegging as it, and the other we were for sure Eric. So
Yeah.
it came down to, okay, who do we take on this mission? Well, the other person, Jeremy, just failed a mission, so let's gamble with him because he probably spent his sabotage card.
Right.
It's unlikely you're going to have a lot. There's not that many sabotage cards in the deck.
No, there
There
was.
was,
There-
yeah.
There's a
In-
lot of
There
In
was
them.
a decent
comparison to
amount.
the entire deck?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, whatever.
Well, here's the only thing though. I will say about the sabotage cards. I don't know what count there is. There is the ones that insta fail. But
So there's different ones.
That's true. But
the other ones are manageable. They give you
Right.
a situation to try and overcome. They are manageable. I never felt like anything besides the insta fail ones was kind of like, okay, this is kind of harsh on everybody.
Right, and some of the missions are what you have to accomplish isn't that difficult, and so it's a very specific situation where the imitations would have something that could mess with that.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, it's not.
I basically don't agree with that comment
don't
in
either.
the slightest.
Right.
So I think that if you are that person, I'm not trying to call you out. That's why I didn't say your name or anything. But play the game again, because I'm not saying this is the greatest game since sliced bread. I'm not. I thought it was kind of okay. Like I enjoyed the game. I don't need to play it all the time.
And sometimes the group you're with makes the game.
I would honestly, I would rather, because you guys are the thing enthusiast. I'm not, so I'd rather just play the Resistance. I feel like I would get like most of the experience out of playing the Resistance. And the only thing I do not like about this game is that the mission deck should be like phased based. Like, here's a mission deck for the first phase of the game. Here's one for the second phase. Because in the Resistance, it does that. The first mission, you bring like 4 people. Second mission, you bring like 5 people, and then 6, and then 6, and then, you know, so it ramps up. And this one, you can bust out a whatever at any point. And I feel like it would have been cooler if it was, you know, less players in the beginning, and then maybe more players, and then less players. If that makes sense. It's kind of like what the Resistance did. Something like that. I'm not trying to redesign the game. I just think that it would have been neat to have mission cards for each section. So if you go back and do that section, you draw from that deck.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad.
Maybe the missions could do something slightly cooler. They could have had just one layer more of something else happening.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think there are a couple genuine problems with the game. But interestingly, they've been addressed by an expansion that was made by a fan. So
Nice.
Here's our house rule expert.
Which is weird. You know, I think my wife asked me about an expansion. I was like, I don't know how you expand on it.
Oh, okay. There's room.
Well, let me explain. There was a number of people, I guess, who feel that as the things, they didn't have to ever do anything. They could just act like humans.
I was gonna note that as I kind of see it as a plus. Another plus is, you know, as an infected, you actually don't know who else is on your team.
Yes, that is kind of neat with it.
And then on top of that, like you're about to say, you don't really have to be the bad guy during the whole game. You could be like,
it's a really hard
game.
game.
I'm for you humans.
Yeah.
And just get on the helicopter at that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So some people feel that's a problem, because then as the thing, they're not actually actively doing anything.
Right. Well, they're just
But
trying to
you still get the
imitate.
blood test.
Yeah, if you help them out too much, they will have 2 blood tests to be able to try.
Yeah, but
I guess
there are some people that you're like, oh, Tim, he's been straight edge. He's never failed anything. I really don't think it's Tim. But George, you know, he kind of did something that made me think he is. So let's blood test him. But I'm definitely sure
that's
that
all
Tim's
with the
not.
social aspect of
Right.
it. Right.
Yeah, of course. So that was one thing that people weren't entirely pleased with. And then the other thing is, if you really make an effort to find out who the imitations are, you can easily do that if you allow people to say, well, I put in a copper wire card, and someone else says, well, I put in a petri dish. If everyone identifies what they put in, you can pretty quickly figure out.
That's where I got messed up in the game. I was like, oh, I put a petri dish in. And Melissa was like, oh, I put a petri dish in. But there's only one. Okay, well, you guys got it down now to 50-50.
Yeah. So this variant, this expansion, is saying you can't do that. You can only say, I can help or I can't help on the mission.
Yeah, like that.
You can't
almost
actually
like Shadows over Camelot style of.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good addition. And then also they made a deck of cards that are character specific events. So those missions that you go on will say the captain, whoever the current captain is, plus 1 or 2 other characters, so that choosing your character matters. Like each of those events that they have directly translates into something that happened in the movie. So it might be, you know, the captain and Lars, and they go do this thing that Lars did in the movie.
Right.
And it's just those 2. And if one of them's an imitation, that's a problem, you know. So it has that as part of it. But the most important addition that it has is it has a locker that you can print off. And so there's this locker that you have that can hold up to 2 extra kits that you make by putting together a petri dish and a copper wire.
Oh, okay.
So you can test aliens 2 more times during the I almost said movie during the game. But the thing is, whoever is the captain can ask people for cards that he can then choose from to put into the locker. But an imitation can do that, and they can go put bad, non-useful cards, or they can go mess with the cards that are already in the locker, or they could be a captain, actually, fix the cards, whatever. But it gives the aliens something to do, and it takes cards out of your hand, because if you do that, if you offer cards to the captain when you do that, you play down a card after that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gotcha.
So it just makes the game, I think, on another level,
Right.
something where the aliens
Probably
have
gets
more
the
of
paranoia up a little bit.
Yeah, and it allows them to go ahead and be a little braver, maybe messing with other missions, because they know people don't have cards and people can't talk about their cards anyway. And so it sounds pretty good. It's expansion on BGG. It's made by Andrea Padavani.
Cool. Sounds awesome.
To go on to one of those things, we did forget, or did you mention about the idea, or when you get your cards from all the other players going on the mission, you can discard one?
I didn't go too deep into it, right?
I like that, because that person can discard a card, and you don't know if they're doing it because maybe they need more dice numbers, or maybe they need a specific, like we're contributing cards to get, knives to fight that mission or whatever. But they can discard the stuff that's not knives, or one card at least.
Or discard a knife.
Yeah, or discard a knife.
Right, and be like, oh, guys, I'm sorry, one of you guys in it.
Or Eric mentions Petri dish, and they get rid of the Petri dish, even though,
Right.
there was none in here. What are you talking about?
Yeah, just to mess with people, and I think that was a pretty cool aspect.
Yeah.
I don't know if we used it as best as we could.
I don't think we did, but we should have.
Yeah, so... Anyway, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
so anything
agreed.
else? Final thoughts?
I think I would play this over Battlestar Galactica, and possibly over Shadows of Camelot as well.
I agree with the first, not the second.
Yes. Actually, I think I'd rather play this than Resistance and Battlestar Galactica. So,
Eric?
I liked it. I want to try it some more.
Yeah, I would like to try it some more. I just think that...
I do think you play this with high player counts. I don't think
right.
Yes,
it'd be
It says
very
like
good.
4 to 8.
Yeah, 4
I
to
don't
8.
think it'll be
6,
any good at
7,
4.
8.
Yeah.
There you go.
6 plus.
Yeah,
6 plus is probably mandatory. But I mean, the Resistance is 5 plus mandatory. So I think that I would play this. It just seems like it's a lot of stuff to play, like a slightly variant of the same game, I guess, if that makes sense.
It gives a lot of the same feels.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
If you like the thing and you like social deduction, this is your game.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a very specific combo, but that's fine. Anyway, that's the thing.